I was rinsing one coffee mug in the kitchen sink of my new lake house when three people stepped out of a black Yukon and started walking up my gravel drive like they already owned the place. My sister was smiling. Her husband was carrying a leather folder, and the young man behind them had a tape measure clipped to his belt. That was when I knew they had not come to visit. They had come to calculate. Before I tell you how that folder destroyed them. Comment where you are listening from and what time it is there. And if stories about quiet justice help you breathe a little easier, subscribe to Silent Family Revenge. It costs you nothing, but it helps this channel more than you know. I should back up. My name is Martin Hale. I am 64 years old. And for 32 years I was a mechanical reliability engineer at a packaging plant outside Toledo, Ohio. That sounds dull because it was supposed to sound dull. I wore brown work boots, drove the same Ford Ranger for 18 years, and kept a notebook in my shirt pocket. Because machines tell the truth. If you write down what they do, my sister Denise used to say, I had the personality of a filing cabinet. Her husband Craig preferred to call me a loser with a pension plan. He said that once at my father's burial luncheon in 2001, while my hands still smelled like the carnations from the casket spray, Denise laughed like it was uncomfortable but harmless. I learned that day that some people can insult you in a room full of family because they have practiced making everyone else pretend they did not hear it. For the next 23 years, Denise and Craig built a life that looked expensive from the curb and nervous from the inside. They had a brick house in Perrysburg with a fountain that only worked when company came over. Craig ran a used equipment brokerage and talked about deals he was always just about to close. Denise chaired fundraisers, bought dresses for photographs, and sent Christmas cards with scripted updates about blessings and growth. I kept working. I did not photograph it. I did not explain it. I just worked. In 2018, one of our filling lines kept jamming whenever the humidity rose above a certain point. The company called it normal wear. I called it lazy thinking. I spent nights in my garage, building a self-centering indexing arm that could adjust under vibration without shutting the line down. It was ugly at first. Then it was less ugly. Then it worked. I filed the first patent paperwork in 2020, not because I expected a fortune, but because I had learned not to leave your name off something you built. In late 2024, a national packaging company bought the patent and the related designs for $2 million. I remember the number because my attorney, Marisol Vega, slid the paperwork across her conference table and asked me if I wanted water. I said no. Then I said yes. After taxes, after setting aside money for maintenance, insurance, and a trust that Marisol insisted on, I still had more money than I knew how to look at. I did not buy a sports car. I did not buy a watch. I bought a modest house on Lake Erie near Marblehead, Ohio, with a screened porch, an old boathouse, and a kitchen window that faced the sunrise. I moved in with 6 boxes of books, 2 cast-iron pans, my father's old socket set, and 1 espresso machine that cost too much but made mornings feel civilized. I told almost no one. The silence was the best part. For 5 months, my life was exactly as large as I wanted it to be. I fixed a loose railing. I learned which gull came by every afternoon and screamed like he had legal rights to the dock. I bought groceries in Port Clinton, and nobody asked me why I never married or whether I had finally done something interesting with my life. I was not lonely. I was unobserved. There is a difference. My nephew Adam was the one who accidentally cracked the door open. He is Denise and Craig's son. 21 now, and nothing like either of them. Quiet, careful, always watching the edges of a room. He had visited me twice when I still lived in Toledo. Once after a fight with his father, and once when he was thinking about dropping out of community college. Both times I made eggs and toast and let him talk until the words ran out. I like Adam. He did not set any of this in motion on purpose. What I think happened is simple. Adam came by the lake house in February to return a book I had lent him. He must have told his mother I looked peaceful. Maybe he mentioned the porch. Maybe he said Lake Erie looked gray and beautiful that morning. Denise heard none of that. Denise heard square footage. The black Yukon pulled in on a Thursday morning in March. Denise got out first, wearing a cream coat that looked too new for a weekday. Craig came around the front with that salesman stride he used when he wanted a room to think he was confident. The third person was Connor Pike, Craig's sister's stepson. I had met him twice, both times at weddings, both times near the bar. Connor was the one with the tape measure. I stood in the doorway and kept the screen door between us. Denise opened her arms before she reached the steps. "Martin," she said, "look at you, hiding out like a millionaire hermit." "My phone number still works," I said. She laughed too loudly. "We wanted to surprise you." Craig looked over my shoulder at the ceiling beams. Connor looked at the dock. Not one of them looked at my face for more than a second. "How did you find the place?" I asked. Denise smiled with all her teeth. "Adam mentioned the lake. There are only so many roads up here." Craig put his hand on my shoulder like we had been close friends for 40 years. "Marty, this is beautiful. 4 bedrooms. Maybe 5 if you finish that back room." I moved his hand off my shoulder. "What is Connor doing here?" Craig's pause was short, but not short enough. "Connor is doing estate optimization now," he said. "Family office work. With your new chapter. We thought it might be smart to get ahead of things before strangers start circling." Connor lifted the leather folder like it was a gift. "No obligation," he said. "Just family. Protecting family." There it was. They had been on my porch less than 7 minutes. I had not offered coffee. They had not asked how I was. They had arrived with a folder and a tape measure because, in their minds, my life had become an asset class. I let them in. People ask why when I tell this story. The answer is that I wanted to see the whole machine run. If a conveyor line makes a strange sound, you do not kick it once and declare the problem solved. You watch where the vibration starts. You watch what it pulls loose. Then you shut it down with both hands free. So I made coffee. I showed Denise the kitchen. I let Craig wander the hallway counting doors. I let Connor sit at my dining table and explain family limited partnerships, private lending structures, tax efficiency, and the dangers of independent attorneys who did not understand family dynamics. I asked polite questions. I nodded when he used words he thought would impress me. I wrote nothing down because I was recording the meeting in my head the way I had recorded machine failures for 3 decades. In 2 hours, I learned plenty. Craig's equipment business had 2 unpaid civil judgments and 1 pending lawsuit from a contractor in Bowling Green. Denise had personally guaranteed a loan for a boutique home staging company that closed after 18 months. Connor was not an estate planner. He had an online certificate, a limited liability company registered 6 weeks earlier, and a website with stock photos of smiling retirees. Their proposal was for me to create a family investment trust with Connor as administrative manager and Craig as advisory representative. They called it protection. It was access. The folder had tabs. The tabs had my name on them. Someone had spent time preparing to step into my life through a door I had never opened. When they left, Denise hugged me the way people hug when they want credit for affection. Craig told me not to overthink it. Connor said he could save me from rookie mistakes. I watched the Yukon back out and waited until it disappeared around the bend. Then I locked the door, sat at the kitchen table, and called Marisol. "They found me," I said. "I thought they might." She answered, "How bad?" They brought a fake estate manager, a prepared trust packet, and a man with a tape measure. She was quiet for a breath. "Do not sign anything," I said. "I know," she said. "Martin, I am saying it because people who bring folders usually bring pressure next." The pressure came 11 days later. Denise called on a Sunday afternoon and spent 19 minutes talking about weather, Adam's classes, and how hard it was to find honest contractors. Then her voice softened in that rehearsed way I remembered from every family argument she had ever tried to win. "Martin, Craig and I have been thinking, you have so much space up there, and we could use a fresh start for just a few months while Craig reorganizes the business." "No," I said. "You didn't even let me finish." I heard the part that mattered. She inhaled through her nose. "After all the years I looked out for you." "You mean when you lent me $300 in 1994, I asked. "I paid it back 2 weeks later. "And you told everyone for a decade that I could not survive without you?" The line went quiet. Finally, she said, "Money has made you cruel." "No," I said. It has made you honest about what you wanted from me. While Denise was deciding I had changed, Marisol was finding out what had changed around me. She called in a private investigator named Earl Whitcomb, a retired fraud examiner from Cleveland who sent emails in complete sentences and never used exclamation points. Earl confirmed the judgments against Craig. He confirmed Denise's loan default. He confirmed Connor's company had no clients except one elderly widower in Sandusky whose daughter was trying to recover $47,000. Connor had moved into an account labeled Consulting Reserves. Then Marisol found the part that made my hands go cold. In January, 2 months before they arrived, and before Denise admitted she knew where I lived, Craig had consulted a probate attorney in Lucas County. He asked what would happen to a single man with no spouse and no children if he died without a will. He asked whether a sibling could contest a trust. He asked how quickly property could be secured after death. He asked these questions while I was alive, drinking coffee, fixing my railing, and thinking my sister had forgotten me. I stopped feeling insulted after that. Insult was too small. I felt awake. Adam called me near the end of March from what sounded like a parking lot. I could hear trucks passing and the wind hitting the phone. "Uncle Martin," he said, "I need to tell you something, and I don't want Mom to know I called." "Go ahead. Dad has papers with your name on them. Not just the house. Other stuff. Connor has been over twice. They keep saying you are isolated and that someone needs to get control before you get taken advantage of." I looked out at the lake while he spoke. The water was flat that day, almost silver. I already know some of it. I said, "Marisol is handling it." Adam went quiet. "I didn't tell them to come up there. I only said you seemed okay." "I know," I said. "You did nothing wrong." He breathed hard once, like he had been holding it for a month. "Is there anything I can do?" "Yes," I said. "I need you to come to lunch on April 20, and I need you to tell me if you see Connor there." April 20 was a Saturday. By then, Marisol and Earl had assembled more than enough. There were court records showing Craig's judgments. There were loan documents tied to Denise's guarantee. There was Connor's registration paperwork, his unlicensed marketing claims, and the Sandusky complaint that had already been referred to the Ohio Attorney General's Elder Fraud Resources. There were 2 phone recordings I had made during calls where Craig told Connor, in his own voice, that they needed me to sign before I got paranoid. Marisol had checked the law before we used them. Ohio allows a conversation to be recorded when one party to that conversation consents. I invited 14 people to the lake house for what I called a spring lunch. 2 old colleagues from the plant came. My former line supervisor, Sheila Park, came because she had once stopped a $1 million shutdown by noticing one loose pin, and I trusted her eyes more than most people's oaths. My neighbor Ben from 2 doors down came with lemon bars and stories that took too long. My doctor came early because Marisol wanted someone in the room who could speak to my clarity if Craig tried the isolated old man routine. Aidan came. Denise and Craig came. Connor was not invited. Craig arrived in a navy blazer and loafers that made no sense on gravel. Denise brought a bakery cake and placed it on my counter like a peace offering. She expected everyone to admire. Craig looked around the room and smiled at my old co-workers like he was preparing to join a board meeting. He was happy. That is what I remember most. He thought he had won the quiet part already. Addoi patruzeci. After lunch, plates had been cleared, and Ben had started telling the same fishing story for the second time. I stood by the fireplace and asked everyone to stay for a few minutes. Craig leaned back with his hands folded over his stomach. Denise touched her pearls. Adam moved toward the porch door. Not leaving, just making sure he could breathe. I looked at my sister first. "Denise," I said, "I spent most of my adult life accepting that you thought less of me. I did not like it, but I made peace with it. What I will not make peace with is you and Craig treating my living life like a future estate sale." Craig's smile thinned. "Martin," he said, "maybe we should do this privately." "We are past private," I said. Marisol stepped out of the study and handed Craig a copy of the probate attorney's letter. He took it automatically. I watched his eyes move down the page. His face lost color in sections, like a room going dark, row by row. "In January," I said, "Craig contacted a probate attorney to ask what would happen if I died without a will. He asked how a sibling might gain control of assets and whether a trust could be challenged. The attorney has provided a written summary to my legal team because, after hearing the full context, he understood those questions were not harmless curiosity. Denise whispered. Craig. He did not answer her. He was still staring at the page. I continued. Connor Pike is not an estate planner. He is not licensed to manage investments. His company was created shortly before he came to my house with a folder bearing my name. A complaint involving $47,000 from an elderly widower in Sandusky has been forwarded to the proper state resources. If Connor contacts me again, my attorney has instructions to respond formally. Craig stood. You are twisting this. Sit down, Sheila said from the couch. She did not raise her voice. She had run production floors for 29 years. Men louder than Craig had sat down for less. Craig looked at her, looked at the room, and sat. This is not a trial. I said, it is a boundary with witnesses. You will not discuss my money with me again. You will not ask to move into my house. You will not send relatives, advisors, friends, pastors, contractors, or anyone with a folder to speak for you. If you are in financial trouble, call a bank, call a lawyer, call a credit counselor. Do not call me. Denise's eyes were wet, but I could not tell whether it was shame or calculation. I looked at her and felt something loosen that had been tight since my father's funeral. I am not punishing you for needing help, I said. I am refusing to reward you for pretending contempt was concern. Those are different things. Then I looked at Adam. He had his hands in his pockets and his shoulders up around his ears. Adam called me from a parking lot because he believed I deserved to know what was being said about me in my absence. He did that, knowing it might cost him peace at home. Last week, I established an education fund in his name. It is separate from my estate and controlled by independent trustees. He can use it for school, housing, books, or training in whatever field he chooses. Adam blinked fast and looked at the floor. Denise made a sound like she had been slapped. Craig said, You cannot just move family money around like that. Marisol said from the doorway. It is not family money. It is Martin's money. The fund is complete. That sentence did more than anything I had said. It ended the illusion that they were arguing over something shared. Denise and Craig left before dessert. Denise paused by the door and looked back at me, trying to find the version of her face that had worked on me in 1994 and 2007 and 2019. She could not find it. Craig walked to the Yukon without the folder. Connor was never seen that day. Adam stayed. The rest of the afternoon was strangely peaceful. Ben finished his fishing story and started another one. Sheila helped me carry plates. My doctor told me my blood pressure was probably better than Craig's. After everyone left, Adam and I sat on the screened porch with coffee while the lake went from blue to steel. They are going to blame me, he said. For a while. Yes. He turned the mug in both hands. Was it worth doing it in front of everyone I thought about lying, to make him comfortable? But he deserved better than comfort. Yes, I said. Not because I wanted to embarrass them, because people who plan in private rewrite history in private. I needed witnesses to the line being drawn. He nodded. Then he said, I think I want to study environmental engineering. Water systems. Maybe. I smiled before I could stop myself. Machines and water. I said, good combination. He smiled too. For the first time all day. He looked 21 instead of 40. I want to say something to anyone listening who has a Craig in the family. Someone who starts using words like protection when they mean access. Someone who asks about your will before asking how you sleep. Someone who measures bedrooms while you are standing alive in the doorway. Do not confuse their urgency with love. The money did not protect me. Marisol protected me. Records protected me. The habit of reading every page before signing protected me. The fact that I let their plan reveal itself before reacting protected me. People like Craig count on exhaustion. They count on guilt. They count on the old family story where you are difficult if you say no, and selfish if you keep what you earned. You are allowed to be difficult. You are allowed to be selfish with the roof over your head, the food in your refrigerator, the quiet you fought for, and the documents that decide what happens when you cannot speak for yourself. Family is not a lien. Blood is not a password. A person who loves you does not need administrative access to prove it. I have thought often about the word failure since that day. Craig used it about me after my father's funeral. Denise never used it out loud, which was worse in some ways. She used silence. She used pity. She used the careful pause before telling people what I did for a living, as if reliability engineering was something to survive rather than respect. What I understand now is that they needed me to be small. If I was small, their spending made them impressive. If I was lonely, their neglect was justified. If I was a failure, their choices still looked like success. But if I was quietly building something real while they were borrowing against appearances, the story cracked. So they kept calling me boring because boring was the only box they had that could hold me. There is freedom in refusing the box. Not loud freedom. Not movie scene freedom. The ordinary kind. The kind where you wake up, make coffee, check the weather, and realize nobody gets to vote on whether you deserve the life you built. Adam moved into a small apartment near campus in August. He calls every Sunday evening. Sometimes he asks about fluid dynamics. Sometimes he asks how to cook rice without burning it. Sometimes he says nothing important at all, which is how I know he is finally breathing. Denise has not called since April. Craig sent one letter through an attorney, and Marisol answered it with 4 sentences. I never saw another one. The real trust exists now. It is clear, legal, and quiet. Marisol drew it up. My house remains mine, while I am alive. My medical choices are assigned to people who respect me. My estate goes where I decide, not where someone with a blazer and unpaid judgments thinks it should go. Adam is the primary beneficiary, not because he flattered me, but because he chose decency when it was inconvenient. I am 64 years old. Most mornings, I sit on the screened porch and watch the light crawl across Lake Erie. The gull still screams at the dock like he owns it. Maybe he does. I drink coffee from the one mug I rinsed the morning they arrived, and I think about how strange justice can be. Sometimes it does not arrive with sirens or shouting. Sometimes it arrives as a letter, a witness, a signed document, and one calm sentence. It is not family money. It is mine. If this story made you think of someone in your own family, comment where you are listening from and what time it is there. And subscribe to Silent Family Revenge for more stories about quiet people who finally stop paying emotional rent to people who never owned the house.